Salutations and welcome. Today we're going to be taking a look at Vergil's third Eclogue, lines 12 through 15. But first, last time in Vergil's Eclogue. Here's our rubric, everything we look for as we go through the text. Well, let's get started. Aut hic ad veteras fagus, cum daphnidos arcim fregisti et calamos, quae tu, per verso menalca, et cum vidisti puero donata, dolebas, et, si non aliqua nocuisses, mortuus esses. If it were not for all the punctuation, this would probably be largely incomprehensible. Thankfully, we have this wonderful punctuation, but even then, it's so jumbled together, so poetic, if you will, that it could be a little bit difficult to understand. So we've just had Benalcas bragging about how he chopped up like fruit trees, or maybe it was a vine, one of the two. And now Demoitos is, I suppose, further reprimanding him. We're saying, oh yeah, like you also did here, you perverse, as we shall see momentarily. But at the beginning of Demoitos' response, we have out, which he's connecting his own words to the previous words of Menalcas, hence me rambling on just there. Hic here is not the demonstrative. In this case, we have the adverb. So here, ad prepositional phrase plus veteres, es accusative plural, and then phagos, that's a word from phagus, phagi, like sticks. In this case, I think it's referring to beech trees. We get sticks from that eventually. I don't remember if the Latin word, if it's a different form of this. But anyway, this one is also accused of plural with veteres modifying it as an adjective, this meaning old. But this is feminine. And you can tell from either ending this is a second declension feminine, one of those unusual ones. I think, as I've probably already said, maybe even in the last video, almost all trees, if not in fact all trees, are feminine in Latin. And I think the same might be true for Greek. But moving on, cum can't take daphnidos as its object because daphnidos there with this os is a Greek genitive. So this has to be a cum clause, and we'd have to take a look ahead at phregisti, our verb, to determine which type of cum clause. Isti here is our second person singular perfect tense. This is frango, frangere, fregi. So we have a perfect stem right there. Active and indicative, which then means we have the temporal cum clause. As I bothered to look it up this time. Temporal, so when, daphnidos, genitive, singular, masculine, Greek form. Arcum, for an accusative, singular. This is from arcus. No, that's citadel. This is from arcus, arcum, which is bow. And yeah, it's masculine. It's US. Then we have a conjunction here. Could be connecting two verbs, except that kalamos doesn't fit. So we've got os here for an accusative, plural. This is masculine. And this word means reeds, pipes, which we saw in the previous Eclogue. Might have been around line 40, something like that. But in this case, the Cambridge Green and Yellow suggests that kalamos does not mean like pipes for playing, which, again, in the last Eclogue, we're connected with Daphnidos, who is the mythical character of Daphnis, and I'll get back to his name in a minute. He is purported to have been the one who invented pastoral song, and so he's a favorite of Pan. He's the son of Mercury. It could be that there's more than one Daphnis. I'm not very clear on a lot of the mythology, as I think it could easily be noticed earlier in my other videos. So since we've got a bow, the green and yellow suggest that this is kalamos actually is a stand-in for sagitas, which are arrows. And the commentary says that this is a fairly common swap stand-in. I forget what the word is. But anyway, so we should read this as reeds, as in the reeds, the staffs, shafts of arrows. There we go. Fregisti, frango, to break, to shatter. So Menalcas shatters the bow and the arrows of Daphnis out of jealousy, which we'll find out momentarily. But first, to get to his name, which I think we talked about earlier, but this time it was actually talking about the bayberry bush, or the bayberry tree. Daphnis comes from the Greek, of course. Daphnis. And then the genitive is eidos. And the noun is actually feminine when it's referring to like the organism, but it's also used of a name. I'm relatively sure that the character is male. I think that's how the commentary talked to him. Again, limited knowledge. Daphnis, as I think it said a moment ago, means bayberry. So that's what his name means. Pretty simple. I'm going to write down all of our translations so far and be right back. Note that fregisti can also mean shiver, especially when you're talking about weapons. But when a poet would be saying that, typically they would mean that you've killed the guy, you've shivered his spear, and so he is dead, I think. So I'm not going to use that because I don't think Menalcas killed Daphnis, and I don't think in this case Daphnis is necessarily the same one as the son of Mercury. Moving on, quae tu. Quae should be referring back to something. Ae, which means it should be nominative or accusative plural neuter, nominative plural feminine. And kalamos and archum are both masculine, so I'm not really sure what that would go back to. However, if we take a look down at donata, this comes from dono, donare, donavi, donatum. That A right there, especially since we've got vidisti, so I'm going to pull down this parsing. I know we're kind of breaking typical order. That can't be nominative, so this has to be feminine. And it has to refer to some object previously in this sentence, well, this paragraph. And we still don't have anything neuter that we run into. Perverse with that E right there is a vocative singular masculine with Menalca in his vocative form. Two, nominative. Quae does fit with donata. So there's the possibility, probability even, that I've misidentified the gender of kalamos and possibly archum. It is arcus archis, so it shouldn't be neuter. U.S. second declension neuters are, I can't think of a single one. But anyway, I think quae is referring to them unusually, and donata then would also. So I'm going to write all that down and be right back. Well, there it is. The air conditioning unit out in the hallway has decided to start making loud noises. This is one of the quieter noises. So I'm just going to have to speak a little bit louder and hope it doesn't pull in the worse noises. Let's move on. Which you also, and then we've got an aside here, cum vidisti. We've got another temporal with this indicative. Puero, this is dative, singular, masculine. It's dative because donata needs an indirect object. So which things you, when you had seen them having been given to the boy, dolabos, the as right there for our not third person, our second person singular imperfect tense, active and indicative, and this means to suffer. I don't know if mourn would be quite right. Perhaps what we've got going on here is that demoitos is implying a series of results. So you broke these things, which things you also were suffering for. And I get another aside right here, mortuus esses. Es right there, the second person singular off of the infinitive, which then means we have a subjunctive. a hypothetical. Mortuus is just the adjective us there for nominative, singular, masculine, dead. You would have died. Sinon, if not for aliqua, is an adverb. So it's not being taken as the object of nakuises. Nakuises, note here we've got the isse for the pluperfect infinitive with the second person singular ending, which then means we've got another subjunctive here, of course, fitting with the if, and protasis and apodosis between these two here. So you would have died, you were suffering for these things, for which you would have died, unless not you had caused harm with an implied daphnis in here. And I'll try to string that better in better English when I return. Real quick, before I forget to do this, note that we've got the imperfect tense, we've got the pluperfect tense. And the sequence of tenses here becomes important because if these were both imperfect tense, then that means they're happening at the same time. And that doesn't make any sense. You would have died if you had not, in the moment of your dying, done this thing. No. Instead, this action has to take place prior to this one to prevent it even from happening. Gosh, that's smudging. Well, now we're getting another weird sound from the air conditioner. But getting to our translation, recall that dolabos can also mean grieved. So he's grieved by these things being given to the boy. And so his revenge, in some manner, was to break them. I think that's what Demoitos is saying here. But let's take a look at it in its own context. Or here, at old beech trees, when Daphnis' bow you shattered, and arrows, which you, perverse Menalcas, both, I went for both instead of just and, when you saw them having been given to the boy, were being grieved, and, if in some manner you had not harmed him, you would die. So Menalcas is a bit full of himself. And perhaps, next time, we will actually begin our poetry challenge that the commentary talked about. Or maybe this has been what's going on the entire time. Maybe there's no formal introduction to it. Maybe there's no challenge made between them. But anyway, thank you very much for joining me. I hope taking a look at this has been helpful for you, and I hope that you have a very good day. Wale.